Right, so let's continue with question F. Same thing, factor whenever possible, and then get a common denominator. Go ahead, you can start now. So factor. Okay, so think about which one can be factored. And then get a common denominator. And then we will multiply both sides by a common denominator. Okay, you can raise your hand if you finish the whole thing, okay? We'll finish question F. Well, Aaron already finished. So fast? Well, 4 people. Okay.
I did over the break, so
Okay. Yeah. Then Aaron, what's your answer? Final answer?
1/2.
Well, X is 1/2. And
Yeah.
okay. And restriction is what?
1.
Cannot be 1. Okay. Colin, how about you?
I got the same thing.
Same thing. Okay. So far, we haven't got anything, huh? That's restriction the same. Please raise your hand if you finished. All right, let's go over. Okay, so far we got 5 people. Anyone got different answers so far? Okay, the middle one, middle denominator, we can factor. We can factor into x minus 1 squared, right? 2 brackets the same. And then 1/x minus 1. So what is the common denominator for this one, Brennan?
X minus 1 squared.
Yeah, we need both of them, okay? If only 1x minus 1 is not enough to include the second fraction, right? Second denominator. We need square. So we'll take the common denominator, multiply with each of the fraction. Okay, so if you multiply in the first fraction, okay, on the left side, what does it become? Nathan, can you try?
X,
X, just X?
X then times X minus 1.
Yeah, okay. One of the X minus 1 canceled out. Okay, and then second fraction, Eric? On the right side, what do you get?
I have x squared plus x minus 1.
Yeah. Plus X minus 1, yeah, okay. And then looks like, okay, feels like a quadratic, right? But if we expand it, the x squared actually canceled out, okay? So that's good. And then we move everything to, right, the x squared cancel each other out. And then we can move the x to one side. Now move the x to the right side, makes it 2x. Move the -1 to the left, and you end up with this. Okay, x cannot be 1. So this one's good. Okay, well, look at next page. Okay, next page has more denominator. Okay, well, I'm just gonna pick one more. Okay, and then we will move on to word problem now. Okay, so let's see which one. They all look similar. Let's just do G. Okay, G needs to factor. Right? Okay, so one more question here. Question G. So this time I won't say anything. Okay, I'll just let you guys pretend it's working on the homework. Go all the way to the end. Okay, raise your hand when you found the answer. Does anyone have questions so far? Like question about how to factor or common denominator? Okay, Yosher, what's your final answer?
D equals 0, 15/4.
0 and 15/4. Okay, and restrictions?
±5.
Okay, ±5. Brennan, how about you?
I got the same thing.
Same thing. Okay, Aaron?
Same thing.
Okay, Colin.
Same thing.
Okay, should be fine. Okay, we'll see. Okay, so this one, the denominator, only the first one can be factored. Okay, so d plus 5, d minus 5, that's the difference of squares, the formula, factored by formula. So common denominator, we don't need all four, right? We just need two of them to include all the factors. So multiply by d plus 5, d minus 5. Okay, when we multiply with the first fraction, then you're left with all the denominator canceled out. You're left with 9d squared. With the second one, you're left with d plus 5. Okay, and then with the third one, Eric, what's left?
D times D minus 5.
Yeah, d times d minus 5. Okay, and then after that, you start simplifying, expand it carefully. The 9d squared equal to 4d squared plus 20d plus d squared minus 5d. And then let's move all. So this one is a quadratic, right? Quadratic equation. We'll move everything to the left side. So that should give you what? That's 5d, 4d. And then minus 15d equals 0. Okay, let's bring the 0 over. Any questions so far? Okay, and Colin, what do we do next now?
Restriction.
No, we are not done yet.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
You like factor it, right?
Yeah, what do we factor out?
D.
D, yeah. So this one is just GCF. You don't need cross multiply, right? There's no three terms. So 4d minus 15 equals 0. And then you solve each one. D equal to 0 give you this first answer, and then d equal 15 over 4. And then once again, d cannot equal to plus minus 5. It doesn't match the answer, so we are safe to keep it. Okay, so far we haven't had anything like the matching, but just keep that in mind, right? If the restriction is the same as your answer, remember to reject. Okay, sometimes you might reject both of them, sometimes you only reject one of the answer. Okay, Eric and Nathan, do you have any question about this one?
Nah, I got it.
Okay. All right, so we are gonna move on to our main focus of this chapter, actually, is word problem, okay? And word problem is everyone is always worried about. I'm gonna break it down into steps so it can be easier to do, okay? So you will need your the what you learn in solving equation, because word problem is to solve for something that you want to find, right? So you need to know how to solve a rational equation. All right, so before we begin, okay, if you look at the question quickly, right, briefly skim through the question, right? This one is talking about driving and mentioned about 100 kilometer per hour, right? And I mentioned another thing, right? 80 kilometer per hour. Mentioned about the time, driving time, right? Looking for distance, right? So something to do with time, distance, and the speed they are driving, right? These are called the speed. So probably in science or physics, you have learned the relationship between these three things. Does anyone remember? How do we connect these three things together?
Is it with like the
Yeah.
speed time distance chart?
Yeah, what does that chart look like?
It's like STD.
Yeah, and then how do we connect them all, right? What's the formula that connects?
I forgot the formula.
Okay, can anyone else add to that? What's the formula connecting speed, time, and distance?
Formula for speed.
Yeah, sure. How do we find speed?
Is it distance divided by time?
Okay, let's write that down first on the top. Okay, speed is distance over time. Okay, and how do we find distance? Anyone know the formula for distance? Brennan?
I don't know.
Okay, well, you already have the first one, right? Speed is distance over time. If you want to isolate distance, what would you do?
Move times like speed times time.
Yeah, so you cross multiply to the left side, okay? So speed times time, okay? We'll give you distance. Okay, and how about if I want to find the time? How do we find the time? What will be the formula for that? Anybody?
Distance divided by speed.
Distance divided by speed. Okay, very good. Distance divided by speed. Okay, so it may sound very confusing here, okay? But then if you understand why it works like that, okay, then easier to remember. So the way I would remember is we'll start with the speed, okay? So let's say we have, or just take this 100 kilometer per hour as our example, okay? This is the speed. Okay, what this speed means is every hour you can travel 100 kilometer, right? That's what it means. 100 kilometer per hour for every hour. So if you are traveling for, let's say, 3 hours, right? So time is 3 hours, right? Every hour you can go 100. So 3 hour will be 300 kilometer, right? 100 kilometer and then another 100 and then another 100. So you will multiply together to make the total distance of 500 kilometer. So that's our distance. Okay, so you just use what it means by speed to remember, right? How to, right? So this is like the middle one. To remember the relationship between the three, right? So I will remember the one in the middle. Okay, kilometer per hour, that's the speed times the time will give you the distance. Okay. And then from that middle one, depending on what you want to solve. Let's say you want to solve for time. Then you will move the speed to the left side. So you would divide it by speed, right? So speed will go to denominator. And if you want to solve for speed, right? If you want to find speed, then you would divide both sides by time. And time will go to denominator. Okay, then you get the formula on the left side. Okay, so it's always distance on the top. All right, so some teacher, they also combine these three together using a triangle like this, right? You can see the distance always on the top, so we're gonna put D on the top, okay? And then speed on the left side, speed times the time, okay? Next to each other means they are multiplying. I'll put multiply there. So for example, if you want to find distance, okay, let me circle that, distance. Right? Finding distance, then you take speed times time. If you want to find the time, right, the red circle, then it will be distance over speed, right? Because distance on the top. And then if you want to find speed, then it will be distance over time, right? So this triangle combines three formulas together. But I would just remember the middle one, right? Then you can get everything else. Okay? Are we clear about these three forms? We need to understand these three before we can do the word problem. Okay, can you raise your hand if you get this chart and got this copy down, okay? Yeah, make sure you write this down on the top of your paper. Okay, Nathan, when you're ready, let me know. Okay. All right, so let's look at first question, right? So just like Nathan said, we can make a chart, the speed, time, and distance, okay? And then organize all the information. So let's have Colin, can you read the question for us? Question A.
Jan and Ben drove from A to B and back. Jan drove from A to B at 100 kilometers per hour. Ben drove on the return trip at 80 kilometers per hour. Their total driving time was 6.75 hours. What is the distance in kilometers from A to B?
Yeah, okay, thank you. So first of all, we need to know we're looking for distance, right? So that part will be our x, right? X be distance. So write that down first. Let distance from A to B to be x. Okay, distance of A to B is x. Well, from A to B, B to A, we'll assume it's the same, okay? So x is the one-way distance. So once you got that fixed, then we can start setting up the chart, okay? So the chart will look like 4 columns, okay? The first column, or the first, on the very top, you just write down the speed times the time will equal to distance. Okay, so you can also call this the STD, right? And then it mentioned about the going from A to B, right? And then the return trip of B to A, right? From A to B and then the return trip. So that's two scenario, right? So you will have two rows underneath. One is from A to B, so the going part, going, and the returning. Okay, and then we using this chart will fill in the information. Okay, the numbers that go for the going and the numbers that's for returning. So I'll let you guys try it out first, fill in as much as possible. Okay, and let me know when you are done filling in. Okay, even if you got something blank you don't know how to fill in, you can raise your hand. So try it out. Fill in whatever you can. And then we'll go over the chart together. Okay, please raise your hand if you have filled in everything you could. Okay, so let's see what you got. Aaron, what do you have? Any one of the box. What did you put in?
So for speed for the going,
Okay.
it's
What
like
do you have?
100 and then times hours.
Okay, 100 kilometer per hour. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the time is h.
Time is h.
Wait, no, it's like
The
when
number.
and
The
then
number. Look, right now, don't worry about the variable. Just put in the numbers. So, what numbers do you have in your table?
wait, so d is x.
The d is x. Okay, so
Because
distance.
the distance from A to B is
Yeah. For going, right?
yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah.
Anything else you put into your table?
The bottom one is 80
80
for
for,
speed.
okay, speed of returning is 80 kilometer per hour. And then anything else you put inside the table?
Well, like it says per hour, so wouldn't it be 1?
Okay, but for the return trip, the day, because we're talking about the trip, right? The story. So for the return trip, they spend 1 hour driving. If you put 1, that means you are saying they are driving on the return trip for only 1 hour.
Yeah, but the total distance was 6.75.
Total time was 6.75.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like how do I separate that into 2?
Yeah, so that part we don't know, right? Because we're not sure which time, which way
Yes.
spends more time. So far that one should be staying blank. Okay. Anything else you filled in?
I'm not sure, no.
Okay. What about like the distance of returning? Is the distance of returning same as the distance of going?
I think.
Right? It's between the same 2 places, right? So we just assume it's traveling on the same route, right? So the distance, we'll just say they're the same, okay? So this is as far as we can do, right? Because the time, they give you a time of 6.75, but I cannot put 6.75 in any one of them because this is talking about the total time, including going and returning, okay? But based on your logic, going is faster, right? Returning is slower. So which way do you think it spends more time? Anybody? Which way needs more time going traveling?
Return.
Return, right? Return should take longer because slower. Okay, so they are not the same. So I cannot just split the 6.75 by half and put it in. Okay, so right now the middle part, I'd like you to circle that. This is the last column. Okay, last column, you cannot fill that in from the question. So you have to get the last column by using formula. You will always have 2 columns you are able to fill in, and then you have 1 last column, you cannot get anything from the question. So now you look at the formula, the distance, speed, and time formula. We want to find the time, right? So you look at the triangle. To get the time, you need to take distance over speed. So you go back to the chart. Okay, let me zoom out, see the chart. time is distance over speed. So distance is x, speed is 100. So this is what you put inside the time. Okay. And then for the return time, it will be distance for the return divided by the speed for return. Okay, so you will always have one last column to fill out, and that needs formula. Okay, so first step, you get the last statement. Second step, you get the table finished. Okay, and then third one, once we fill in all the table, we need to set up a formula. I mean the equation, okay? So you look at the last column, it mentioned about the time, and the 6.75 is the only number we haven't used yet. Okay, so it says that the total driving time was 6.75. So how can we set up an equation? Anyone can tell us how do we make an equation now? Total time 6.75. Anybody?
Would it be x over 100 plus x over 80 should equal 6.75?
Very good. Okay, so each of the box represent different trip, right? So x over 100 means the time of going added with the time of returning. Okay, it should give you the total time, right? Total time of 6.75. So there you go. That's your rational equation. So once you get to the rational equation, then you use what you learned before the break, how to solve rational equation. Okay, we need to get common denominator. What's a common denominator for this one? Common denominator. Yoshir, what do you think? What's a common denominator?
Common denominator.
Take your time, okay? No rush. As low as possible, okay? We don't want to use 8,000, okay?
Is the common denominator 80?
So inside 80, do we see 100 in there?
I mean, you could divide it by 10.
We need something easier to operate with, right?
It's 400,
80
right?
is too small. Yeah?
It was 400.
100
Is it 400?
or 400. Okay. So can 100 become 400?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Can 80 become 400?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So inside 400 includes both of them. You could also use 800, right? But that's not the lowest. It's not wrong, just a bigger number, okay? So usually we want to get the lowest common denominator. We're gonna use 400 for this one, okay? Of course, there are other choice. So I'll let you take over from here. Multiply both sides, just like you did before the break, okay, with 400. Okay, to get rid of the denominator and solve for x, okay? Once you got the final answer, you can raise your hand. So in your homework, when you are doing word problem, okay, you need to show the chart, okay, as your work. And after the chart, oh, of course, the let statement, right? So just follow this as like a template. Let statement, let something be x, and then make the chart and then equation. Okay, so let's multiply then. When you multiply the first one, you are left with 4x. Right, and when you multiply with the second one, what's left, Nathan?
5x.
Yep, 5x. And what's 6.75 times 400? Aaron?
2700.
2700. Okay, so add them together, 9x equal to 2700. This turns out to be a nice number, right? Divide by 9 will be what? 300. So what does that 300 mean, Yosher?
That means that the distance is 300.
Yeah, okay, one-way distance. Okay, so final step is you need to answer what it means. Okay, so you can say the distance from A to B is 300 kilometer. Make sure you have the correct unit. Okay, so that's your final answer. We haven't got to too many word problems. So your homework, I would just probably pick 1 or 2. Okay, that has to do with total driving time, something similar. Okay, so then you can follow the example here. And then most of your homework will be on solving equation. Okay, so if you have any question, you can stay after class. Otherwise, I'll see you next week. Okay.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye-bye.